Welcome, IT changemakers, to the Dex Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Okay, we always have our eye out here on the Dex Show, Tim and myself, for interesting articles out there online. And we recently saw a great one by Adam Moore. He's a global service delivery leader. The piece was titled People First IT Service Delivery, so you can perhaps see why it caught our attention. And it was published on LinkedIn, and we liked it. We liked it enough to think, great theme for a show. Let's get Adam on. So let's welcome the author. Adam, welcome to the Dex Show. Wonderful to have you on, mate.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. And thanks for reading the article.
Our pleasure, truly. Good place to start. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your career so far, sir.
Yeah, sure. So a little snapshot into my career has meant that I've worked predominantly within financial services space for pretty much the last 15, 20 years, on and off, and getting up to that point of service delivery leader that you introduced me at, I have worked within service desks, help desks. I've taken calls at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, over in Asia Pacific, where I'm based. I'm based in the UK. I've started working at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Worked all many different hours. I've understood the pain points from the users. I've crawled under desks and so on. So effectively, what I'm saying is, I've kind of walk the walk so I can talk the talk, and that's how I
been in the
really
trenches, Adam.
Trust.
You've been in the trenches.
Yeah, absolutely. I cut my teeth, working within, the asset management space with a global asset manager for many years, and yeah, I really enjoyed that, and that's where I learned a lot of the technical side of things way before, we had the things, the solutions such as Nexthink out there. Back in the day, for us to get a feel and a grip and a grasp of whether a PC, for example, is actually working or not, we would look at, log files and event viewers and so on and so forth. And now with Nexthink, you don't need to do that as much, and you can look at whether there's one PC, as whether there's one PC or a plethora of PCs that are suffering from the same predicament. And as that journey went on, I became the team leader, manager of the team, working in global teams that spanned Asia Pac and across to New York, which then meant many trips around the world, which was fantastic. And I'm very honoured to have given a lot to that, and see so much of the world through my career. And then ultimately land at the position of head of IT service delivery that was really leading, again, a best-in-class team during the pandemic, and then using the tooling to then look at things like, how are we going to bring back the users into the office? Do we then need to look at what we've got? Is our existing estate fit for purpose, or do we need to, with the way that things were going, do we need to be a fully sort of hybrid environment with a laptop first environment? Do we need to look at things like user personas? How do we slice that up? And there's always that tooling there available for you. It's not just a case of going round to the business with your notepad anymore. There are many tools out there that can help you slice and dice that data. So that's a little bit about myself, and what I've been doing. I'm passionate about IT service delivery. I'm always looking for, I guess, two sides of it. IT can deliver change at a rate of knots, and we within technology can become victims of our own success. And we're very good at delivering change, but we're not always that good at listening to what the actual user wants. And just because Microsoft says, or another solution provider says this is the next latest and greatest thing, It doesn't necessarily mean that it is the right thing or the right fit for the business that you're in. And I think a lot of that is going back to that getting into the trenches. It's about getting out and getting into the hearts and minds of what the users want. Almost like that, pseudo business analyst role. That part of my role encompasses almost like a voice of the customer, I guess, or voice of technology. And you can then analyze all of that data and you can say, look, this is what we want to do, this is what you want. And it's almost like we kind of, we'll probably touch on this word again, almost like a hybrid, like a blend of a bit of both. And then you land somewhere in the middle. It's never just one thing without the other.
Absolutely. And I just want to pick up on something you said at the top of that answer there, Adam, and I want to direct it to Tim. Tim, what was the latest call you ever had in your IT career? Did you ever have a 3 a.m. emergency call? Because this is now my definition of earning your stripes. Okay, if you haven't,
Yeah.
if you haven't had
So
one of those.
Adam and I lived in the same trenches, I'm sure, and also both in financial services. So I've been in many of the same situations. We had a 2 a.m. call. I may have
2
told
a.m.
this story
Okay,
before.
okay, I'll let you.
2 a.m. And someone actually started to snore on this escalation call, and the only solution to the snoring
Oh my goodness.
was to close the call and have everybody else call back in. So yeah, the 2 and 3 a.m. calls are not fun.
God, I thought I was going
I
to
had
catch him out, Adam. I thought he was going to be like, oh no.
Well, I had I can't remember what time it was. It was 2 a.m., 3 a.m., maybe it was something a.m. And yeah, I got caught, and it was a Saturday. It was a Saturday night, UK time, and the trader was calling me. Markets are closed globally on a Sunday morning, afternoon, wherever you are. And the trader, the company I was working for at the time will go unnamed, but the trader was calling. And he was relentlessly calling, and it hit the mobile, hit the cell that I was on, and he was just testing the phone lines. He was testing the phone lines in the middle of the night. Well, it was Sunday afternoon in Singapore, and once he got to me, he finally kind of fessed up and said that this, I'm just testing the phone lines. I just want to make sure this is my BCP planning. I've got a task list to complete by the end of the month.
And you confirmed that they do indeed work at 2 a.m.
Absolutely, there you go. And a little escalation internally on the Monday morning, and I'm sure that got back to him, and then an apology came back my way. No
Amazing.
harm done.
I never felt more like I chose the right career, gentlemen, than right now. But
Yeah.
this is a shocking stuff.
Yes.
But Adam, so we're going to dig into your article momentarily. But the theme, of course, is the people first IT service delivery. First question for you is, in that career you just described for us, how close do you feel you came to implementing that already?
I think the main crux of it is, in terms of implementing or certainly executing a people first service delivery strategy or even a mindset is almost as good as a strategy, because there's always an overarching strategy above everything else, is getting out there, understanding what the business wants. Okay, and that might be quite difficult now. It shouldn't be, because everyone's reachable. We've years ago it used to be death by PowerPoint. It's probably death by Teams or death by Zoom now. But you can set up a call with them. I remember when I was at one asset manager, I went round the whole of the business. I went round to the whole of the executive committee. I then went round to the heads of business, and I tried to understand what their hopes and aspirations were, and that's two-sided. What are we doing well? But more importantly, what are we not doing so well? And how can we improve on that? Because if you're going to be the best in class, you need to almost get yourself up onto the platform and understand, well, what's good, but also what's not so good, and how can we make the not so good better? Most people are working within the same tech stack, within a given industry, and the way that you go and execute that is no different to how the textbook tells you to. But it's really about getting into the hearts and minds of the users, I would say, and finding out how how you can improve on that experience for the users, bringing them along the journey. I would say.
So I want to go back to the analogy of being in the trenches. Adam, you and I lived in the same trenches. I love talking to people about their Nexthink experience. A lot of the folks that we talk with are the broader, higher level thought leadership, but in the trenches, when you're fighting the battles at 2 a.m., I remember my first experience with seeing Nexthink before becoming a customer at Hartford. It was like, and to stay in those trenches, it was like coming around the corner in the trench and finding the plasma rifle, right? You've got now this amazing tool to get yourself out of the trenches and really make a difference. What stands out to you about the capabilities and the tool, and why you would recommend it to a peer or coworker, or what's your rationale for helping spread the word?
So yeah, look, I remember this quite vividly, and this really resonated with my then account manager at Nexthink. I think it was can't remember now if it was 2017 or 2018. I forget when I actually became a customer exactly. And he was a really good guy. We built a really good relationship up. And the one thing that stuck with him was how I was using Nexthink to change the narrative on IT. Okay, how we could become more proactive rather than reactive. Now, years ago, Tim, as you know, within the trenches, how would you get support? How would you consume support? You would have people that would log tickets, well, if they wanted to, they would walk up to your desk. They'd find anyone that works within IT, irrespective of whether they're a service management, service delivery, or whatever, developer, whoever. Okay, you sit within this area, within this quarter of the office. You look like someone that is a techie. I need some help. Okay, so what they would, I was using Nexthink to really change that narrative of wanting to be proactive. What I wanted to do when we implemented it was I wanted the team to fix one problem, but then also have a look at, the laptop health of a particular device, or of a particular user rather, and say, hey Tim, right, we've now fixed your problem. I can also see that your battery's at 40%, or I could now see that your laptop is due to be end of life soon. Let's sort something else out of you, right? Let's sort the laptop out. Let's prepare a new one for you, or we'll put a call in to replace this part. Okay, when we change the narrative, we change the perception. When we change the perception, we have happy users. When we have happy users, we have a happy everyone, right? And it just makes everything so much more easier to deal with. So that in itself was a game changer for me. The level one support feature that you could integrate, or that you can integrate in ServiceNow, again was an absolute game changer for me. Self-heal pop-ups that would tell people, these are all, when you think about it, these are all PowerShell scripts that, exist natively, and you can script them and so on. But who has the time to do that? If my team have a single pane of glass where they can look at everything and they can work within it in the same way that they would do within an ITSM toolset, it makes everything a lot more easier and a lot more efficient. It also changed the narrative when we were working with a huge market data company, where we were discussing whether or not someone had, they wanted to know why someone within the business was saying that their application was running slow in a particular time of day. It was always Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the Southern Hemisphere, and the fund manager was complaining that, oh, it's because the US have woken up. We had two private IPs, private routers between the offices, and I was talking to this company support team, or my team were talking to this support team, and we were not getting anywhere, and we wanted to escalate to the network team. But the first line were saying to us, hey, have you done this troubleshooting? Have you done this? You need to reinstall the application. You need to do X, Y, and Z. And I was saying, but we've got the data in front of us because we can trace it out within Nexthink. We can search for the host name. We can find that there's a block there. We can find that something needs to be replaced. We can see this. Let me provide you with this information. That, Tim, cut down all of the noise and cut down all of the backwards and forwards and so on. And at that point, that was the real light bulb moment for me that said, this tool is an absolute game changer. You know, there's one thing there's one thing, Tim, that makes, I said before, you change the narrative, and it's the self-heal and all of this and all of that really good stuff, because that's a real perception piece. But when you're actually, you've got a first line service desk, second line service desk or desktop support engineer that's taking that information to someone within a networks team within a massive market data organization saying, I can prove it, and once you visualize that, they might not know the facets around the networks and so on, and they're not supposed to, but they can see that something looks like it's stuck, that there's a bottleneck, because data's going in and data's not going further from this IP address, and it doesn't need to be a rocket scientist to figure that one out. It's like, can you see the block? Yes, I can see the block. Okay, right, let's focus our attention there.
I love the light bulb analogy. Our project was not Project Nexthink, it was Project Edison, and we told everyone in the company we're turning the lights on. So that analogy holds true for so many people I talk to. You talked about some of those aha moments and the benefits of being able to go deep in troubleshooting on a device, even though the employee didn't complain about it. IT would never, in my experience, would never want to ask, so what else is wrong? They just spent God knows how long trying to fix this one problem with trial and error. They're not going to ask about another one that's going to keep them there. But now with that level 1 checklist, they don't need to ask what else is wrong. They can change the narrative and say, here's what else is wrong, and here's what I'm going to fix for you. And the employees in that I've worked with are so appreciative of IT when they're not the ones escalating, when IT is actually making things better for them. My aha moment was not only going deep on a device and finding out what else was wrong, but at the time, the version we were on, it was a right click. This blue screen that I just fixed, I can now right click and holy cow, there's 12,000 others that I can go fix. So the visibility is just amazing. What else did you kind of glean from, or what do you look at it in terms of not necessarily the capabilities, but what are the benefits? How do you communicate this to an executive? It's great to be proactive. It's great that you got all these capabilities, but what's the outcome? What are the benefits that you see?
I guess the outcome is around, well, look, ultimately, an exec's always looking for return on investment, right? He's especially with the level 1 checklist, integration within an ITSM toolset. We integrated into ServiceNow, and we were able to evidence that here are the tickets that we as in humans have logged and closed at the end of the month, and here are the tickets that have been self-healed that the users have actually something's popped up, they've done something within the tool set, it's now then sent something through into ServiceNow, it's then closed. So here's a portion of tickets at the end of the month that we've not touched, and that, in terms of that narrative change, is amazing, and that for an exec then can see, well, actually I am getting some bang for my buck here. I can actually see what's, what I'm paying for, and there is a return on investment. That then means, that then also means, we're able to be quicker at our response time. So when you talked about the blue screen, one thing that happened a few times was patching. We'd have issues with patching, Patch Tuesday would come along or something, and we'd always have, we were working within heavily regulated organisations, so there was a lot of governance around. You can't deploy patches to everyone just because the vendor says. So you've got to go through UAT testing, yada yada yada, and you'll have your test groups, and someone will test something, but there'll always be something somewhere that hasn't been tested, even though they've said they've tested it, and then suddenly a spreadsheet will stop working, or something will stop working, or a laptop will overheat, or something. There's always something that slips the net. That's what I'm getting at. We were then able to then have a look and see, well, okay, let's scroll back within Nexthink, and let's have a look and let's see, right, okay, well, when was it working? Okay, it was working yesterday afternoon, so that's fine. Looks like there was patches deployed and then it stopped working, or it worked for a little bit and then it stopped working. Okay, we can have a look at that. Now let's have a look, and we go back to your analogy around the blue screens. Let's have a look and see where else. Oh, right, okay, here's another 50 machines that we deployed to today with the patch, and it looks like they've got that issue. They don't know about it. Okay, what are we going to do? Okay, we're going to contact the users. What's our rollback plan, etc. So that then helps us be on the front foot, that we can contact those users proactively rather than reactively once the noise has kind of blown up, and going back to your trenches, you've been there before.
Yeah, there's always this push and pull between enterprise security and IT operations. Security wants the patches out as soon as possible. There's a risk, there's a vulnerability. IT is going to push back and say, well, we could end up breaking 10,000 people. We've got to do our due diligence and go slow. The visibility that you get here allows you to accomplish both needs. You can move more quickly because you're not running around in the dark. One of the things that we did, Adam, and I'm curious how you approached it, was to have a very rigorous plan of operationalizing. There's so many things you can do with the platform once the lights are on. We knew that if we tried to do everything all at the same time, we would probably fail. So we set out a very definitive plan. What, in your view, where's the most important place to start without feeling overwhelmed?
Within Nexthink, it was just for me, it was just taking it a little step at a time. So just using what was available to me. So I remember using the search function, and that was a good a good tool to start off with. We had a relationship manager that would help us, or success manager rather, that would take us through that journey little by little. Again, not to overwhelm, because we always, we all had our day jobs as well. So what I didn't want to do is suddenly become way too overwhelmed with the tooling as well, and just almost at the point that we would set the strategy with them, would introduce the tool to other people within IT, and then look at, we could use it for network monitoring, and we can connect in, hey, if you've got an API, you can connect into something else, and all of those things. So I think on the main crux of it, it was really that end user, the ability to search for a username, the ability to search for a host name, certainly on the end user device side of things, was the main part. And we would use it as a secondary part of our troubleshooting arsenal, really. I would be expecting the teams to be, going through the basic troubleshooting steps, but then also using Nexthink as an enhanced way to get to the answer. So that's how I would start off with it. But I would really then work with the customer success manager to say, look, we are an organization of X amount of endpoints, etc. We are in the financial services space or whatever. What has another company done, that doesn't, I always say this, I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
I don't want to do something new. I want to try and do the same, but I want to know what other people have done before, and give me your strategy and help me along the way to be successful with the product.
what I've heard other customers say, and it kind of paraphrases, I think, what your approach there is the first thing I need to do is be better at being reactive. I'm
Yeah.
horrible at it now. I'll get a little bit better at being reactive, and eventually I can flip that into being proactive. The way we looked at it was we're going to fix our existing environment. There's tons of things to go after out there that are broken today that we can go fix. Phase number two, we're going to stop breaking it. We're going to do better testing, better release management, better installations, so we no longer break the environment. And then phase three is we're going to govern the environment. We're going to make sure that we understand what's changing out there that's outside of control. We're going to see if we can do some better controls. So that's the kind of the
Oh,
phase that we went through.
that's absolutely it. Day one, we were not ITSM integrated and we were not using the
Right.
level one checklist. Let's be clear on that. I'm sure someone would have liked us to be, but it was just, when you've got a global team and you've got, deliverables in other areas, it was the main thing was get it out onto the endpoints. Let's start analyzing what we've got. Then let's look at, for example, we've got a Windows 7 migration into Windows 10. Let's start having a look at the health and what we can, when we can move people across and utilize that data, because there was other different projects that were coexisting at the same time as a Nexthink implementation. So it was kind of working within partnership rather than against one another, and it worked well.
So one more question, and then we'll wake Tom up, and he can ask a few as well. What one of our biggest success criteria was the way we communicated. I talked a little bit about our internal branding. How do you view internal comms? How key do you feel it is to making the program successful, and how do you actually put together that comms program properly?
Yeah, so look, that's hugely important. Um, that you're only as good as the people that you're talking to, really.
Mm,
And if you're not talking to people and if you're not taking them along the journey, then frankly, you're not on a successful journey. You absolutely need to A, get out there and talk to people, but B, you need to take people along that journey and also break it down into chunks to understand what's in it for them.
right.
Okay, when you look at a transformation from Windows 10 to Windows 11, or you're going from a file server migration to a SharePoint Online migration, or something like that, right? You need to talk to the business, and you need to take them along that journey and find out what's what are their aspirations, what are their deadlines, what's the emotional attachment around us not doing something, um, and that takes time. Nexthink can't quite help you with all of that, but it can get you quite along the way in terms of showing you why you should be doing something. So absolutely, setting up focus groups, steering committees at a bit more of a higher level. Focus groups are really important. Getting out there, getting into the trenches, and getting the team to talk about what's happening within change. We call it that the elevator pitch. Giving a very high level summary of what's happening. You've got 30 seconds or 60 seconds to tell people what's happening and why. Giving the business a bit of a choice as well. I think people like to have a choice, maybe on a set menu in terms of what we're going to be delivering. No, you can't have the shocking pink laptop, for example, but you can. These are the laptops that we've got, and it fits within our environment. Um, Communication through obviously things like roadmaps and strategies are great, but newsletters. Nexthink does a great thing around, pop-up campaigns and so on, where you can kind of tell people what's going on and so on. But all of that, a combination of both, or all of it rather, um, really does help get that message across, sets out the stall and
Yep.
sets the tone.
Cool.
Amazing. And XLAs and SLAs, Adam, I have a feeling that you've some experience in this area as well. I wonder if you could tell us the secret to getting
Yeah.
these right.
I think one can't really work without the other. Is my take on that. I think that's the
That's
secret.
interesting.
I
Yeah.
think yeah, I think you can, you can dazzle people with SLAs, right? You can kind of, wow, we're brilliant. We've hit 90. We said we were going to be 90%. We're now 98%. We're amazing. We're brilliant. We've smashed it, guys. Let's finish the week on a high. Um, the XLA side, to me, I think as we're in 2023, is much. This could be a um, this could be quite an emotive point. I think is maybe much more important in terms of finding out what the business wants. Okay, we talk around business culture, perception of change. It's really understanding what people want and need and how we can provide that change. So your SLAs might be great, but the business might not be on board with you. What are you doing to change that? Have you, are you using, net scoring? Are you doing CSATs? Are you communicating in newsletters? Are you using the digital experience tooling like Nexthink to actually see, well, how can we be better in terms of the tech that we've got? You know, is if we're hiring best in class talent, do we have best in class technology to support that talent? And that then changes that narrative. So yeah, I do think one kind of complements the other. I don't think you can have one without the other either, really. Well, you shouldn't have one without the other.
You're actually a remarkable source for the evolution of this strategy, Adam. It's been a fantastic conversation, and I next want to ask you about self-service and how you fit that into this kind of people-first strategy in a way that doesn't burden people or confuse them with responsibilities they don't feel should be theirs, but presumably empowers them and makes them feel more part of a process.
Yeah, so it goes back to my take on this is very I think it was somewhere that I saw might have been a ServiceNow conference or something. It probably was around the consumerization of IT. We've all become accustomed to way before the pandemic started around using um, phone apps to order things, one-click order, and so on. And our user base have become so accustomed to that. When they came into the office, they want that same experience. So we can look at self-service portals aligned to that experience. We can give them an app to do that. Whatever, I want to order a headset, I click here and it follows some workflow, and that's standard workflow management that most solutions have. Um, but I also think self-service, when we go back 2 to 3 years, people were working predominantly remotely. They became more empowered because they had to. So what might have been years ago, I will come to your desk, or we would never send something out without someone coming to your home and setting it up for you. Now, a lot of users have become a lot more self-sufficient, almost to the point that they do expect that, and there's a blend. I think, Tom, there's a blend in all of it. I don't think that you can go 100% self-service in certain industries, and I think that there should be a degree of blend. But why would you go self-service? Absolutely to empower the users, but also enable the teams to work on other things. If they know that some of the light touch stuff, password resets, refreshing cache, that type of thing, um, has been done for by the users, at least once they've done it and the issue is still there, then at least the team know that, oh, actually, yeah, we've really got to get involved here now.
Listen, Adam, we brought you on the show because you have this wonderful article out there, which we will put in the show notes, of course. And I swear to God, we didn't think we were going to get such an amazing kind of like real world in the trenches
Yeah.
account of the impact of Nexthink in your various phases. Wonderful for us because Nexthink is our host and our sponsor, if you will, here at the Tech Show. And it's always wonderful to speak to customers who have found such value in it. But I think they were really, really great. It was a really, really great account and a really multifaceted account. And I'm really, really delighted to have had you on the show. Could we just ask for people who are interested, and of course, as I said already, they'll be able to read your article in the show notes, and they'll be able to find you on LinkedIn there. Is there any other way you'd like people to reach out to you, follow your work, find out more about you?
Yeah, it's just through LinkedIn.
Sure. Yeah, excellent. Well,
Perfect.
look,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, mate. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Adam. Good stuff.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.